I want to once again warn all parties that Gaza is a tinderbox. If and when it explodes, it will have devastating consequences for the population and derail all efforts at advancing peace. 2 million Palestinians in Gaza can no longer be held hostage by divisions. For a decade, they have lived under the control of Hamas. They have had to deal with crippling Israeli closures, Palestinian divisions, and have lived through 3 devastating conflicts.
That warning from the UN comes amid a steady trade-off between alleged Hamas rockets and Israeli airstrikes. On Tuesday, Israeli strikes hit Hamas bases, which the army says were in response to projectile fire from Gaza. This isn't the first time it's happened this year. These pictures show a similar attack in February. Hamas wouldn't give details about any damage that occurred with that latest strike, but a spokesman did say that Israel fabricated claims of Hamas rocket fire. Well, Tuesday's altercation came after another warning, this time by former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak. He told German media that Israel faces a slippery slope toward apartheid. Well, let's talk now with former Israeli Foreign Minister Tzipi Livni. She joins us live from Tel Aviv. Thanks so much for being here. I want to get your comments on Ehud Barak's statement in just a minute, but first, having heard what the United Nations had to say, is Israel standing by to witness the tinderbox that is Gaza exploding soon?
As a minister in the Israeli government, I supported the disengagement plan. Israel left Gaza Strip. We pulled out our forces. We dismantled all the settlements. We uprooted Israelis who live there. And therefore, the fact that this is the situation in Gaza is not because of Israel. It's because of the fact that Hamas controls Gaza Strip, that for more than 10 years, Hamas is not willing to accept the requirements of the quartet, to recognize the right of Israel to exist, to renounce violence and terrorism, and to accept former agreements, peace treaties between Israel and the Palestinians. And therefore, this is the unfortunate situation. But
well, you can
the
say,
decision of Israel
you
was
can say
to quit.
it's not because of Israel, but it will be Israel's problem if this tinderbox explodes. What is Israel going to do?
Yes, I agree that in the end it can be our problem, as it is our problem that Hamas is targeting our civilians. I believe that the right thing to do is to try and make a difference, a distinction between Hamas as a terrorist organization, as an administration in Gaza, and the people in Gaza. And therefore, Israel allow not only humanitarian food, but all the products that are needed in Gaza to enter into Gaza quite freely. But I agree that the situation is very complex. In the end of the last operation of Gaza, I said that the best thing to do is, firstly, as I said, to distinguish Hamas from the people,
but Hamas
and to help the people.
Understood.
And,
but in the
to
meantime,
force Hamas also to.
Hamas is there for Israel to deal with, whether Israel likes it or not. And Hamas says it's changing. It says it is an evolving institution. They issued a new charter a few months ago accepting the state of Israel, but not the occupation. I'd like you to listen to what Hamas's former leader Khalid Mashal actually had to say. Okay. And I want you to tell me if you find him sincere.
Hamas is changing. It's evolving. Like any organism, it has vitality, and it regenerates, has its own personality, and has a future. This is normal, and we are proud of this. What Hamas presented is a document, not a charter. The first charter of Hamas was in 1988. Now we have a document in 2017. This reflects the natural evolution of Hamas's political thought and performance. In the political document, it presents a balanced, creative, and authentic mode.
Is this an evolving organization that eventually Israel can deal with?
When Hamas renounced violence and terrorism, accept the right of Israel to exist, and accept and abide former agreements between Israel and the Palestinians, the answer is yes. But this is not what's happening now, unfortunately. I mean, Hamas is talking about a Palestinian state 67 line, but is not willing to say that this would be the end of conflict. The whole idea is to try and bring an end to an ongoing conflict between us and the Palestinians based on 2 states for 2 peoples. Each state gives an answer to national aspiration of different peoples.
But according to them, their new charter says they are working for that they are working to recognize the 2-state solution.
But they are not.
Go ahead.
Well, it didn't happen yet. I'm waiting. It didn't happen yet. I'm waiting. I hope that they would accept and understand that terror is not the right way to act, and they would accept the right of Israel to exist.
So if you
it's not there yet. Hopefully they would bring that.
And you will work with Hamas in that case. When you hear the wording you want from its leadership, you will work with Hamas.
I want to emphasize that it's not the words that I want. It's something that the entire international community put on the table. And the requirements are not Israel's requirements. It's the Quartet requirements. Renounce violence of terrorism, accept the right of Israel to exist, and accepting the peace treaties between Israel and the Palestinians. It's there. They can be legitimized by answering to all these parameters, requests, and conditions. Until now, they are not doing so. If they are moving toward this, fine, but it's too early to know. And until now, unfortunately, they are still using terror.
Let me ask you, though, if you accept some of the blame for the deteriorating situation, particularly given what we heard from Ehud Barak. He says Israel is on that slippery slope toward an apartheid state. We actually have a graphic with the statement that he made, saying if we keep controlling the whole area from the Mediterranean to the River Jordan, where some 13 million people are living, then 8 million Israelis and 5 million Palestinians, if only one entity reigns over this whole area named Israel, it will become inevitably either non-Jewish or non-democratic. This is Israel's role to play.
Ehud Barak and me share the same ideology and the same views and the same policy. We want not only to promote, but we are preaching for the idea of dividing the land and creating 2 different states. One is Israel, as I said, and the other is the Palestinian state. Because we believe, both of us, that this represents the only way to represent the nature and the values of Israel as a Jewish democratic state. Now, both of us would not accept, and we would make all the efforts here in Israel with vast majority of Israelis that would not support an apartheid state, and therefore Israel would not be an apartheid state. But I do agree that we need to continue, preach and fight, and I mean politically, and hopefully make decisions toward the idea of 2 states for 2 peoples.
I have to ask you honestly, though, how realistic is the 2-state solution? Some criticize that you are just talking about it because you have to, when in your heart you know that Israeli politics, Israeli people are far too divided to ever accept an independent Palestinian state. Go ahead.
Because I have to. The best thing for me politically is to say no chance for 2 states for 2 peoples, and let's just manage the conflict. I mean, I'm doing what I believe is the right thing for the future of the state of Israel. I believe that not everything is a zero-sum game between us and the Palestinians. And most important, there is an opportunity now. We have President Trump saying that he wants a deal. Nobody wants to say no to President Trump. We have the Sunni Arab states, those who want and understand that Iran and Daesh and the others are their threat, but they want to see Israel moving toward the Palestinians, hopefully achieving peace with the Palestinians. So this can change the entire region. If both leaders in Israel, Netanyahu, on the Palestinian side, Mahmoud Abbas, would make the right decision and would take bold steps in order to do so. So I believe that there is an opportunity now, and I would continue in Israel to preach for it, to support it, and support politically if Netanyahu would make also the right decisions in Israel.
Do you think part of the problem is Netanyahu himself and his very hawkish policies that have been so pervasive over the last decade now?
You know, as you know, I'm in the opposition in Israel. But we negotiated with the Palestinians in 2013, 2014, and Netanyahu accepted the idea of an American framework for negotiations. And therefore, what is needed now is to put both of them, Netanyahu and Mahmoud Abbas, in a kind of decision-making. And what President Trump needs to do is what Obama didn't do. And this is to put the paper on the paper, and both of them will be tested. And therefore, it's not about what I think, it's about decision-making. And I believe that this is moment for decisions.
Okay. Given your optimism, is there any chance, or is it over, or is the return to conflict with Hamas and Gaza, is that in the past, or do you leave that door open if you feel Hamas does not change its ways in the way that you've laid out today?
You know, it's not about feeling whether Hamas changed their ways. We feel it. When they target Israel, when they are targeting our civilians, we feel it. I hope that both sides would not lead to escalation and deterioration. Sometimes we saw in different parts of the world miscalculation. I hope that the situation would not deteriorate. I mean, for the future of the people in Israel and the people in Gaza. I hope not, but I think that this depends on both sides. So as long as they are not targeting Israel, they are not using terror against Israel, Israel would not initiate a war in Gaza. All we do, and this is what we did in the past, is trying to defend our citizens. So hopefully we would not see deterioration.
Okay.
But you know, it's the Middle East.
Tzipi Livni, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us.